So while I was
Yes,
playing the
it
videos
was.
earlier,
But you might as well just restart your presentation from the beginning, Jeremiah, as we weren't live on the Alien Scientist channel, and then we went live and it's ended. So just begin from the beginning, because that bagel coil is next level, and what you're reproducing and experimenting with the Bob Greenyer, Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project bagel coil is where the design's from, correct?
It's similar to his design, and that's where the motivation for that design came from. And what I did was several steps beyond what has been done so far with bagel coils, and I was able to do that much more easily because I found a way to make wire that almost self-winds and allows me to create even more complicated layered geometries. So the bagel coil is what we call a 3-tor. And I'll get into that here. So let me go ahead and explain this. I don't know. I think we just lose somebody. We got somebody there. Okay, so what we're looking at here, this is the Hall effect probe that I showed that I'll be showing a video of in just a second, since we're sort of restarting this. And this probe has a BNC connector on the end, a USB charging port, a power switch, a 5-volt step-up boost converter from this 3.7-volt battery, and then at the very end here we have a Hall effect probe, and that's a linear S49 probe, S49E. I'll show you a video of that in just a second, but let me just show you a couple of things since I've already got this email open. This is a transformer that I'm building, and this transformer uses a special kind of wire, which we'll get into in a moment. This wire is basically like a guitar string made of copper, and it's wound around a double magnet core. Now, very much like you'll see in Norman Wooten's stuff where he uses a magnet, or what you have in the Manila system, here we're using a permanent magnet as a ferrite core. And the two north poles are stuck together in the center, and then it's wrapped around with this this double conductor wire where one conductor through the center is straight and the other is wrapped around. And so the reason for why this is actually important and why this makes it different from another transformer is what happens when we have two orthogonal fields. When we have an electric field that's on one axis and we have a magnetic field that's naturally 90 degrees to it. Well, normally we can only pick up one of the two fields with the conductor, like the two that are parallel, say two coils of a transformer that are parallel with each other. Well, in this case, all the windings that roll around this toroidal core, wrapped around it like a conventional transformer, are surrounded by another set of windings that are orthogonal to those and don't induce a current into the core. All they can do is basically induce a change in epsilon surrounding the conductor that goes around this core. But epsilon and mu are what define the speed of light, and they define the interaction with the magnetic system like this one with the outside environment. So here we can pass current through the outside wrap and change epsilon for the inside conductor, whose epsilon is actually perfectly aligned with the one that we're changing, but whose mu is not affected. And this will allow us to convert Brownian motion from the ambient environment by creating a time differential where the force vectors of the accelerated motional particles, just due to thermionic motion, are now they're now curved in towards and extended along the gradient where the time is slower inside this core and inside this wire. And so those force vectors extend. And this is a direct opposition to Lord Kelvin's statement that you can't extract energy from the thermal basin because entropy has already nullified it. This is a Maxwell's Demon situation where we're using a temporal differential, or a squeezing of electromagnetic energy, squeeze light effectively, to try and draw extra energy out of the system. Now that special wire looks like this when you look at it close, and here you can see that there's a center conductor running through and it's got this wrapped conductor. This is what the wire looks like, but the two conductors are actually the same size, unlike this picture. And this is another device that I wound with that same stuff. And this is a 14 by 14 by 14 torus. And so the three main toruses that are each orthogonal to each other, we have these ones here. Can you see my arrow, by the way? Can you see my mouse pointer?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So these ones here that are sort of wrapped around this core like this, they're orthogonal, but there's also a wire that's running parallel that it's wrapped around each of these loops as if it's a core. And then, of course, we have the core inside that, which has got other loops wrapped around to a single loop, and then we've got another core inside that, which is orthogonal. So we have a total of 8 individual conductors here for 16 terminations. You can see the rat's nest here. And what's going to happen here is every single time we flip epsilon and mu, compared to the center axis wrapping around this thing, we're adding a layer of field compression, one more boundary layer where the refractive index has to twist 90 degrees before it can reach the next. And this supports a sort of Matryoshka nesting doll style arrangement. And in doing these stacked fields, what we're doing is effectively slowing down the speed of light. So I should be able to take the center conductor of that coil and tell if, based on its inductance and the amount of time that it takes for a signal to pass through it, if I've slowed down the speed of light due to the fact there's no ferromagnetic elements anywhere in these 8 layers.
What I just envisioned and realized is that it's like the coil within the coil within the coil. It's the field within, or the bubble within the bubble within the bubble, as David Soretta likes to say, but you're actually incorporating the twisting, moving of essentially like the universe, galactical orbits and rotations of energy and everything and spin, that you've got essentially the gyroscope within that coil all in one as the energy movement.
Right. It is an electromagnetic gyroscope. So it takes the J-curl tensor, aka the torsion tensor, and the electric scalar, and it inverts them back and forth and layers them 8 deep. And what the reason why this is more interesting than just, say, a conventional stacked coil is each time you go 1 layer deeper, all the layers on the outside are affecting the layers on the inside. So we're talking about a sort of low energy warp drive effect, and we're not having to pump out all that power into one single area because each layer affects the next. And this will allow us to use all positive energy states to create a significant temporal distortion in the affected region.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
The way that we would normally harness a dynamo, for instance, we spin a dynamo, and a dynamo is essentially an electric motor working in reverse. Yeah, okay, but we're only spinning that motor in one axis, aren't we? If you were to take a gimbal setup with a ring within a ring within a ring, and they all have opposing mountings, so that they all, like the way that, you know, the things that keep cups level on ships, like a ship's galley cooker, yeah. But one of those nested circles, if you have a cable connected to the very inner ring that travels all the way through all of the rings, and you twist the cable, all of those rings then spin and do this by virtue of you spinning the one cable at the end, because they're linked. If you then put magnets on each of those rings, could you not create a 3-dimensional equivalent of a dynamo?
Yeah. Do you remember the movie?
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Contact?
Yes, sir.
And the 3-axis ring motor gimbal.
Yeah.
You understand what the purpose of that was? And
you spin it with a cable from one end, and that will
they weren't
produce so
spinning it with a
much
cable.
energy.
They're pumping power into each layer that's self-motorized through the commutators. So no cable, but commutators, which is far more effective.
What was that film with that O'Neill actor where he had that machine
Stargate?
and they opened it? No. It was the scary O'Neill bloke, not Stargate one. So they're in a deep space ship somewhere, and at the end of the ship, the drive of the ship opens the hell gate somehow, and it all goes very wrong.
Oh, I totally know which one you're talking about.
What's that called?
Oh, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
My girlfriend
It's
was
horrible.
watching.
It's hideous film. It gets very bloody at the end.
It's
Sam Neill. Sam Neill is the actor. It's like
Event Horizon.
Is it Event Horizon?
I don't know. I think it's
with Sam Neill.
Well, 2 people think it's Event Horizon.
Isn't the thing in that a set of wheels within wheels within wheels? That's very Ezekiel.
Okay, it is Event Horizon. It is. Okay, my bad.
It is, yeah. That's the one.
That's Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 2 interesting things that I'll mention about what I just showed. One is that Bagel Coil. If people here aren't familiar with Bob Greener's channel and haven't seen O'Day and the donut system, that coil is claimed to do something really special. You hook up a signal generator to it, small audio amplifier, or something else like that. You provide a sine wave signal or some other wave signal. It was only tested with the sine in the Russian paper. And they tested it at 30 hertz because they had a 50 hertz line, so they wanted to differentiate for sure that the signal they were measuring with their oscilloscope-based magnetometer, why I built my magnetometer to replicate, they wanted to verify that it wasn't, line noise. And so they hooked up the generator to that thing. They were measuring the flux in the middle, and then they disconnected the generator, disconnected the wires as well, and continued to measure an oscillating magnetic flux of the roughly same amplitude going through that coil. Now, they'd done many, many tests, and they found that this field would persist in the center, self-oscillating magnetic flux for up to 2 days, which is pretty freaking fantastic. But they noticed that if you just poke your finger through the center, you'd completely destroy this oscillation, almost as if there was something physical, like a phantom field in the center, that could be disrupted by physical perturbation or something entering that region. And that makes it sound like it's tied to the local mass or the local matter. It demands that we reconsider the role of a vacuum in terms of magnetic flux.
There's a unifying force there, isn't there?
You know where the flux is. So you know what stores the flux?
No, what stores the flux is
it's the core. The core
no,
stores the flux.
They're coreless. These are coreless. They have copper cores, and you could even remove the coil from around this area, and it will persist in that spot. It doesn't need to be there anymore.
You're saying a coreless oscillator would self-oscillate without a core?
I'm saying the coreless oscillator will produce a oscillating magnetic field in its center, and then you can take away the coil, the coreless coil, and you'll still have the oscillation in the center, according to the Russian report. And that's why I built that coil, to test this phenomenon as well.
That is interesting.
Oh, yeah, very.
It's like a polarizing.
Jeremiah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, G.
We can hear you, Joe.
So when that oscillating field continues, if that's what you find from your experiment, try popping off a cap, because I found when I'm doing my experiments and I get this buildup of a field, the only way to get rid of it is to actually have a really hard snap go off in the background, and I use a capacitor to do that. So when you do the experiment, if you find that oscillating field's continued, and you try the finger test, and that sounds kind of funny, but that works out, do me a favor, redo the experiment and try with a capacitor.
Oh, yeah, well, if I can get the self-persisting field, I'm already going to be rejoicing and jumping up and down, because that's an impossible feat of physics that should never happen and is completely unsupported by general relativity, special relativity, or quantum electrodynamics or quantum physics. So this effect would be something brand freaking new that we would demand a change in our current model of the aether or of the vacuum in order to justify. And I'm not saying that I expect it to work. It's a Russian report, it's obscure, and nobody's been able to replicate the effect so far, despite the fact that people have built similar bagel coils. They're not quite like mine, but they built similar bagel coils, and they haven't managed to reproduce this. So I'm not super confident, but hey, if it works, I'll be celebrating like crazy. We'll do a stream about it. I'll demonstrate the effect with my new oscilloscope magnetometer probe, and then we can all get crazy about theorizing how in the hell this is physically possible.
What is this about the south field you're talking about here?
This is that bagel coil that we're talking about.
Bernard, look at your Twitter inbox.
I can't hear you. What's that?
What about the south field?
Dude, I do not know why you're like 5 feet away from your mic, but please get closer.
Can you hear me?
Please just get closer to your. I don't know. Are you wearing a headset? Like you sound. I hear your room echo like you're in the hollow deck that looks like, man. Like it sounds like you're in a big room, dude.
Oh yeah. Do you wanna, MysteryEon? Do you wanna share screen and share? So, do I just call you MysteryEon? Do you have what's your actual name?
It's Ian.
It's
just Ian. Just Ian. Bernard, it's Ian.
Gotcha.
It's Ian.
I love
Mr.
the
Ian.
wordplay. It's Ian. Gotcha. MysteryEon.
Penny drop
Gotcha.
moment.
But yeah, if you want to share your screen and go through some of the AI images you've been generating throughout, as and just
I've just sent you a load. I've sent you some on Facebook.
I know you
On
sent them on my
Twitter. Sorry, on Twitter.
But sadly, I have 3 different Twitter accounts, and what my main Twitter that you sent it to is still attached to my banned, deleted YouTube channel. So when I'm streaming, I can't really access it. It's like on my phone, sort of thing. Pain in the butt. And if you have it on your computer, if you want to just go through all of them that you've done,
well, just throw them.
And we can finish
I'll interrupt it. So
I guess
I can go.
Yeah, you've got it set up where they're just behind you there, right there. You can put them up, right?
So you can see here, I'm running Night Vision XL. So this is the SDXL model, but it's a photorealistic model that I use for rendering some of the Truth Seekers show intros and stuff that we do. So
Stephen Camion.
You'll get to see all my So at the moment I've done anti-gravity machine, complex, high detailed machine with twisted copper wiring. That's my prompt there.
I like that prompt. Okay, let's see this.
So I'm going to go through. It's still generating. It's about 30% through a run. So
by the way, let me mention
to infinite image browsing here.
Because I'm probably going to forget this, but while I was putting those 2 magnets together, after I had glued the 2 north sides together, they're 100 millimeters wide. Their diameter is 60 millimeters. They're each 15 thick, so it's 30 tall altogether. I noticed that while I was holding it in my hand before I wrapped it, it was acting like a gyroscope. Like I could feel a strange gyroscopic precession, almost like almost like inertia. But the strange thing about it was that instead of it trying to stay axially aligned with the parallel flat faces as if it was a rotating disc, it seemed like the alignment was completely orthogonal to that, and it wanted to always tilt down 90 degrees. And so it would want to sit upright, standing tall with the hole basically facing parallel to the ground. And it didn't feel like it was trying to pull itself down as if there was an extra force, but it felt like it would fall into that position very, very easily. It would take more force to rotate it until it got into that position when it was parallel with the table surface. It was much easier to turn when it was horizontal with the table surface. So that was something interesting where these 2 pinch magnetic fields acted almost like a magnetic gyroscope. And it's enough to point out where if anybody ever wants to squeeze 2 large magnets together, and you'll only feel this with really big magnets, that you might want to check that out. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I was imagining it, but it's significant if it's actually true.
Right, and this is where I suspect at some points, like AI is gonna accidentally discover a breakthrough.
Oh God, yeah, isn't it?
Putting stuff in like this, right, where it's just gonna show some idea that
what does that look like? What does that look like? That looks like a quantum computer, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Looks like a fusion machine.
Both. Oh, we got CERN right there by the looks of it, almost more.
I was thinking to ask AI to build a over Unity circuit, a simple one, as few parts as possible.
That looked like Atlas, the last one, right?
I just love the way that it efficiently and organically designs things that we wouldn't. Look at that. Wow.
Sorry, Gerald, do you want to repeat that? There's also a couple second time delay, obviously, between Ian and then us in North America.
Are these all solid state?
Is that? Bernard, let's check the time delay. So if I do a count, if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the gap between them, if you try and do it as quickly as possible and continue from mine, okay? Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Exactly. There's no delay. There's no delay
at all.
None.
Wow.
None.
Should that be possible with you in the UK and like me on the west side of North America?
Yes, because we have fiber optic cables traveling underneath the Atlantic Ocean that connect us. So we're communicating at the speed of light.
Fair. Small. Too small.
I mean, there'll be like a...
fascinating.
It's probably like 150 millisecond delay or something. It's not much. We could probably, in fact,